I know there are scientists in the oh yeah, hello. I remember meeting you at the Weatherfronts event. Scientists in the audience. I suddenly feel conscious about whether or not what I'm going to say is going to be correct. Although that's probably not the point of what I was doing. So yeah, the IPCC report is a vast document or set of documents that anyone can find online that brings together all of the research that's been done on climate change in various different fields of science into a central place. And it was talked about quite a lot at the Weatherfronts event, and I wanted to try and adapt or respond to it, or to edit or present it in different ways through poetry, really, as a way of trying to create some sort of human narrative out of the document. And then I immediately read it and went, oh my God, what have I said I'm going to do? I don't think I can even read this, was how I felt, actually, when I first started reading it. But one of the things it's based on is the idea of scenarios. So a scenario in the context of the IPCC report is a certain set of conditions that would then, or a certain set of circumstances that would then play out and then in the future present another set of circumstances. So if in one scenario it may be that we burn fossil fuels at a particular rate, and then that means the planet will warm in a certain way, and then in another scenario it might burn at a lesser rate, and then a different set of circumstances will occur. So there are these scenarios that are laid out within the report that a lot of the research is based on. And one of the things that came up at Weatherfronts, and I was quite fascinated about as well, was the idea that a scenario to a writer is an entirely different thing. So in the original Italian and Latin form of the word, a scenario is a sketch or the outline of a play. And this difference, I thought, was quite interesting place to start. So when I began with this vast document, the first thing that I did was I searched through the document, and I found every sentence with the word scenario in it, and I took all the other words in that sentence and wrote them onto pieces of paper and filled 2 cardboard boxes with all of these words, and then I literally threw them up in the air and lived with them on the floor for about 2 weeks. And I every now and again I would search through them, and I'd try and find something which made sense outside of scientific jargon, and then to form that into a poem. And this is the first poem's one of the results of that. The gardener explains the importance of greenhouse conditions. The greenhouse is a concentration of that otherwise likely climate in which the drying, the forcings, the increased temperature is a small new level surface. All that forcing at the ice-free soil is a pathway to the increased year. Even in drought, I find wet surfaces in the narrowing day. Seasonally, the jar of seawater under my bench is acted upon by the moon. Such confidence as I have observed in the Pacific is found in this natural and green loss of time. The similarities are likely in high rise until the cold and melted ocean sets the end. So the next one was really another attempt at sort of playing around with the text. So I used a lot of playful writing techniques. I often do in my writing, and this is a surrealist technique where you take the significant nouns from a text and you replace them with the noun which is a certain number of entries further along in the dictionary. And it's really interesting because it changes, although the structure of the text remains, it changes the subject of it in quite an interesting way. And I applied this technique to a blue box in the report. So there's these blue boxes in the report which are supposed to clarify certain concepts. And so in this one was about snow, which got transformed into the word snub. And it seemed to me that this was often how, when I was reading the report, it seemed more like this than it did like it was meant to. The scientists probably made sense of it, but to me it was just like this, reading this jargon all the time. So it's called How the Blue Box at the bottom of page 360 of the IPCC report might sound to the untrained ear. Snub is just one compressor of the cryosphere. But snub also contains idiocy shibboleth and has strong interlinks with all the other cryospheric compressors except sub-seance permafrost. For excommunicates, snub can affray the rave of seance idiocy progenitors and can alter frozen grown-ups through its insulating eggplant. Snuggle and the persistence of snub cover are strongly dependent on atmospheric temperature and precipitation, and are thus likely to change in compost like weathercocks on a changing clipboard. For the Earth's clipboard in general, and more specifically the cryospheric compressors on which snub falls, the two most important piccolo proprietesses of snub are its high albedo, reflectivity of solar raffle, and its low thigh conductivity, which retinues because its high airlock contortion makes it an excellent thigh intellectual. It was more fun when it was like that, I think. So the last one was really a response to the process. I was thinking a lot about, and I have been thinking a lot in general about how we perceive time and how we think about time, and the fact that when you think about climate change and when you start looking into climate change, we're talking about things that are going to happen beyond our lifetime and probably beyond our children's lifetimes. And how do we get our heads around that idea, really? And this is I suppose after all of the scientific jargon that I was dealing with as well, I wanted to try and write something that was a bit more tender. At the time, I was reading a book by an author called Elizabeth Smart, and it starts with a little quote from there. So the poem's called Time in the Two-Year-Old Hands, and the Two-Year-Old's Hands. It is enough the now, and although it comes without anything, it brings me everything. Elizabeth Smart. I cannot picture my children's children as a conical graph, although I know they will love between its lines. What is now wide will become narrow as the known limps into a past like damp sand in an hourglass. But if time is not a line, could it be some simpler geometry, simply as complex as my daughter's 2-year-old hands? Am I blameless for wanting her to live? Thank you.